CNN is reporting, with the use of anonymous sources, that Bernie Sanders allegedly told Elizabeth Warren that women cannot win the presidency. So
and
again,
he spit on her. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? He spit on her too. That's what I heard. It was from an anonymous source.
My sources told me, okay, I spoke to 4 anonymous sources, and they told me that Elizabeth Warren made this up. See what I did there, right? Now, obviously, I don't have 4 sources that talked to me and told me that. But this story is just gross. Look, I get that there are stories that rely on anonymous sources, but the way that this was reported and the receipts that we're about to show you, which of course show you who Bernie Sanders is as a person and what he actually thinks about women. Make it clear that this story is nothing more than a hit piece. And so let me get through the details and we'll discuss.
Sure.
So first, let me give you the response from Bernie Sanders, who is outraged by this ridiculous article by CNN. He says, "It is ludicrous to believe that at the same meeting where Elizabeth Warren told me she was going to run for president, I would tell her that a woman couldn't win. It's sad that 3 weeks before the Iowa caucus and a year after that private conversation, staff who weren't in the room are lying about what happened. What I did say that night was that Donald Trump is a sexist, a racist, and a liar who would weaponize whatever he could. Do I believe a woman can win in 2020? Of course. After all, Hillary Clinton beat Donald Trump by 3 million votes in 2016. And in fact, Bernie Sanders campaigned rather aggressively on behalf of Hillary Clinton after she was the Democratic nominee in 2016. So why would he waste his time campaigning aggressively for someone who he believed had no chance in winning? So there's that, right?
I love that we can't get people to accept that.
I know, but those people don't matter because they're not honest actors. So let's not waste our time trying to debate with dishonest people who rely on a woman whose real name is Michelle Curry, who smears people on the left all over Twitter, right? Those are the kinds of people who will take out of context videos just to put out all sorts of claims and nonsense about people. And yes, I used your name, just like how you use it on social media all the time. So you've doxed yourself, homegirl. Let's move on to the rest of the news. So look, if you think that Bernie Sanders doesn't believe that a woman can be elected president because there's so much sexism in the country, I just want to remind you that another person who believes that is Hillary Clinton and her surrogates, who kept saying incessantly that the reason why she lost is because of sexism in the country. But Bernie Sanders actually doesn't believe that, okay? Bernie Sanders has a long history of believing that women can be in positions of power in this country. And we have 2 specific examples for you. First video is from 1988. Take a look.
The real issue is not whether you're black or white, whether you're a woman or a man. In my view, a woman could be elected president of the United States. The real issue is, whose side are you on? Are you on the side of workers and poor people, or are you on the side of big money and the corporations?
So, I want to watch that one more time. Sorry, I want to replay that video because it's important to pay close attention to what he said there.
The real issue is not whether you're black or white, whether you're a woman or a man. In my view, a woman could be elected president of the United States. The real issue is, whose side are you on? Are you on the side of workers and poor people, or are you on the side of big money and the corporations?
A woman can be elected president of the United States. That is a statement he made in 1988. I also want to note that Bernie Sanders was urging Elizabeth Warren to run in 2016. But
which seems like a waste of time because he doesn't think that they can win.
Yeah, it's super
So why
strange.
do that?
But maybe that's not enough evidence for you guys. So why don't we go to a video from 1987 where he talks about women running for president.
Has there ever been a woman mayor?
Not in Burlington. There have been, and there are women mayors all over the country. There's a woman governor. Who can tell me the name of our governor? Yeah.
I think it's Madeline Kunin.
That's right, Madeline Kunin. And Governor Kunin is a woman. And there are other, not a whole lot. I think there's one other woman governor. There are the mayor of San Francisco is a woman, and there are many women mayors, but not enough. And one of the very important things, and I hope that all the girls in this class understand, that you, just as much as the boys, have a right to become president. There's not been a woman president, although there was a woman who was giving thought to running for president this time, from Colorado, a woman named Representative Schroeder gave some thought. So I hope that the girls will think that they have the right to be involved in politics quite as much as the boys do. It's beginning to change, but it's not changing fast enough.
Again, Bernie Sanders in 1987 speaking to a third grade class, encouraging little girls to get involved in politics and essentially telling them, I believe, that a woman can be a president in this country.
Exactly.
Right? But
yeah.
So what did Elizabeth Warren say in response to CNN's reporting, right? Because as CNN mentioned, the description of that meeting is based on accounts of 4 people. 2 people Warren spoke directly with soon after the encounter, and 2 people familiar with the meeting. So they're people who know Warren, right? So Warren should know whether or not this type of reporting is accurate, if this is embellished in any way. No comment from the Warren campaign, none, 0. Okay,
which means that we could have a conversation about who was the impetus for this, who planted this story. And I think it's likely one of the aides. Or potentially there's other people who stand to benefit, like Biden certainly benefits from this fighting between Bernie and Warren, but that only makes a difference if you come out and correct the record.
Exactly.
If you don't, then I don't care. I don't care who started it. You're now benefiting. You could correct the record, you could say something, but you're choosing not to.
And this conversation happened in December of 2018. The whole point of the private conversation that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren had was that they kind of had this pact that they would not run negative campaigns against one another. Now, look, what's a negative campaign? Negative campaign is when you do personal attacks and like hit jobs, things like that. But I don't believe it's a negative campaign when you're highlighting the differences in policy, the differences in what you see for the country. That's the whole point of a primary. Otherwise, what's the point in running?
Yeah, right? It's attacking the personality or the motivations, demonizing as opposed to differentiating, basically. And the thing is, like, I'm glad that you had the historical footage, but for me, this is simply a common sense sort of situation. I think that this is knowingly the sort of story that when they printed it, when CNN chose to go with it, they knew the only people that are gonna buy this are the people who already want to believe that it's true of Bernie Sanders. Because which is more reasonable? That Bernie Sanders sat down with a woman who was going to be running against him in a long, hard fought primary and said something crazy to her, knowing that eventually it would come out, or that he said, yeah, Trump is gonna attack, he's gonna attack pretty much anybody on anything, which we all agree. Like if he had said in that meeting, Trump will attack a woman for being a woman, nobody disagrees with that. Literally nobody in the country doesn't think that that's true. Trump did it today against Warren in particular. And then, so she tells someone, and that aide, who obviously is biased towards Warren, embellishes it a little bit and turns it from an acknowledgement of how racist and sexist Donald Trump is to like a personal belief of Bernie Sanders. Who actually believes that a politician as savvy as Bernie Sanders would do that? Would provide that sort of ammunition to one of his rivals right before the election begins? It's
just not who he is, but it doesn't matter, right? They will characterize him as a sexist, as a racist, as anti-Semitic. I mean, we've seen it all. And it's not about protecting disenfranchised groups of people. It has nothing to do with that. These groups of people are nothing more than pawns for the Democratic establishment. The fact of what they want to do more than anything is destroy his campaign because he threatens their way of life, right? He threatens their profit motive. He threatens the private industries that fund various campaigns. He threatens all of it. He threatens the entire system. And so I'm embarrassed because I think back at my very long 13-year, career here at TYT, and I think of all the different times I naively fell for stories that were reported about various people allegedly being sexist or offensive or whatever. And I just have a lot of guilt because who knows what kind of misinformation I repeated, and I apologize profusely for that. Okay, because I have realized now more than ever, and that's another embarrassing admission on my part, that the media is not what journalism is supposed to be. It wasn't what I bought into, it wasn't what inspired me to go to journalism school. They are simply extensions of corrupt political campaigns. That's why independent media is so incredibly important.
Yeah, and in particular, that CNN, on the eve of a debate that they're involved in, would run with this story when they haven't talked to Elizabeth Warren. And think about the wording they use for their sources. 4 sources, 2 of which talked to her a year ago, which is already like a little bit suspect, but fine. And then 2 people familiar with the meeting. What does that even mean?
Right.
Does it mean anything other than, and then those 2 people talked to 2 other people?
Yes, that's
so
that's
they
what
were,
it means.
not only were they not in the meeting, because even the original 2 people weren't in the meeting, those other 2 didn't even talk to Elizabeth Warren.
Right.
So what is the point of including those 2 people? And it reminds me of, in the aftermath of this story coming out, so CNN had their 4 people, and then someone, I believe from BuzzFeed's like, oh, I can confirm the story too, independent confirmation. Who'd you talk to? The same aides. That's not independent confirmation. Those are the same sources. What are you talking about?
Yep, that's exactly right.
And yet it's considered confirmation because the bar for whether you run a story and whether you consider it confirmed is much lower if it's about Bernie Sanders. They don't care if they get it wrong.
Yep.
And if it affects the debate and if it affects the caucus, they don't care. But on top, I do want to give credit to Sean King. So he's been talking to people and he tweeted recently, just spoke to a source who told me that Elizabeth Warren admittedly embellished the words of Bernie Sanders to her friends after a meeting with him in 2018, saying that Bernie said a woman couldn't win, but they never actually said those words. Also, I reconfirmed with every outlet saying they confirmed their story about Bernie Sanders, and not a single one of them spoke to Warren. So if you speak to people who had a conversation with Warren more than a year ago, and you reach out to the 2 campaigns, and the Bernie campaign says it didn't happen, and the Warren campaign won't respond, how could you possibly go with that story?
Because it's not about the truth, it's about, again, being an extension of a political campaign. That's what this so-called reporting is, and it's so deceitful, it's so disgusting, and it's just transparent. And I want people to be aware of how transparent it is so you don't fall victim to this type of nonsense. Because sexism is real, there's no question about that. But I'm really tired of women being used as pawns, right? Because when push comes to shove, these people who are using or exploiting sexism for their political gain, are they actually gonna do anything to improve the lives of women? Are they proposing anything to really, are they gonna fight to improve the lives of women? That's what I wanna know. And look, I know Elizabeth Warren as a candidate has, but when it comes to the people who are aggressively smearing Bernie Sanders, who are using accusations of sexism to smear him, do you think they actually care about women and improving their lives? It's pathetic. And I leave you with this. Amanda Turkle wrote a piece in Huffington Post and she brought it back up for everyone's attention, to everyone's attention on Twitter. I wanted to just show you a quick screen grab of the headline. Joe Biden said Hillary Clinton faced sexism, but that's not going to happen with him. His campaign has clarified that he wasn't implying that women are less electable than men. Okay, so he had to make that clarification because he was essentially saying, no, I'm more electable than a woman because I don't have to worry about those accusations of sexism. Okay, so it's just amazing how, imagine if Bernie Sanders said something like that. Okay, that would be a huge
imagine
story.
if 4 people you didn't know said that he said it. Imagine that.
Front page. It's just incredible. And look, they can call Bernie supporters whatever they want. Bernie bros, they're divisive, they're this, they're that. But they have to fight back because if they don't, these types of lies just stand. And it's unfair to a candidate who's anything but sexist.
And as of, I mean, it's easy for us to say the CNN reporters obviously had too low of standards for going with the story. The editors didn't stop them. It's being put out at an opportune time. The aides are obviously biased. All of that is true. But as we're saying this right now, the story's been out there for hours and Elizabeth Warren hasn't said anything.
Hasn't said a word.
And that makes her a part of this.
TYT is all about challenging and disrupting the status quo, and so is Aspiration. Aspiration does not invest your money into fossil fuel businesses that harm our planet, such as pipelines and oil drilling. Instead, you'll be able to fight climate change with tools like AIM, the Aspiration Impact Measurement, and Planet Protection. They also don't hit you with outrageous fees for you to access your own money. You can even earn cash back and get free ATM uses up to 5 times a month. Head to aspiration.com/TYT to learn more. For a limited time, get 30 days of free TYT membership when you sign up.